Good afternoon, everyone. So it is exactly 12 o'clock. We know some people are still joining, but in the interest of time, we are going to go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about how to manage your underperforming new hires, what that looks like, and then how to turn the tide and turn those underperforming people into your superstars.
So I'm Carrie Patrizio. I am an HR business partner with Compass Workforce Solutions. I have a SHRM certification, the SHRM-CP certification. That test was very hard, so I probably won't get the SCP. She laughs because she knows.
Yep.
I also do the predictive index for the company, and that's exciting. I enjoy doing that. I just received that certification, and my master's degree is from St. Joseph's College, or now University, out here on the island in human resources management.
And I'm Marie Mareno. I'm also an HR business partner here at Compass, which is very recent. Previously, before that, I was an HR generalist here. Thank you. Like Carrie, I'm also certified in the predictive index, and I also have the SHRM-CP certification. And I echo Carrie's sentiments. It was a hard test. But in addition to that, I'm also a SHRM certification facilitator. So I do join the study groups, and I facilitate a lot of the learning modules that go along with obtaining that certification. And then my bachelor's degree is in human resource management from Post University.
So we're going to dive right in here. Our objectives today are going to be identifying the underperformance causes, learn the key reasons behind new hires' underperformance, why are they underperforming, including unclear job expectations, poor onboarding, cultural misfits, and skill gaps. And listen, poor onboarding doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It's just that maybe you didn't know what to do. So that's kind of why we're here, to help you, give you some ideas. Then we're going to talk about enhancing the assessment and communication aspect, gain skills in assessing new hires with clear goals, and then learn to initiate a constructive performance discussion, because that's also part of the problem, right? We don't always know what to say, how to say it, particularly in encouraging that open feedback that you need. You need that new hire to be able to say, I don't get it. I mean, I have had some experience there, with someone that I know recently tried to tell their manager, I'm not getting it. And the manager just didn't understand. Good person, just didn't. And that was such a level of frustration that almost made that person go job seeking all over again. So feedback is really, really key. And then create a development and support plan. So we're going to talk about how to develop these plans that are personalized to the new hire, as well as the job. And then we're going to talk about incorporating training, mentoring, and other resources, all while navigating the complexities and the individual needs of reassignment or termination, with an eye on, well, what does this mean legal wise? And also, what does it do to the team?
And then we do encourage you, if you can, to stay on till the end with us. We're going to cover a lot of material, but we're also going to offer a special offer to everyone who is able to stick it out till the end.
It's not going to be that hard, guys.
No.
We'll try to make it entertaining. Besides, we get a pat on the back if we keep you all till the end. And as of right now, there's 17 people. So, all right, should we see if we keep them all?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So let's start out with a quick poll. Have you ever had a new hire who wasn't getting it?
Be honest here. It's not a reflection on you.
Nope. And it is anonymous.
We see 11 people, 12 people, 13 people. Oh, wow. Wait a second. I don't think there's any no's yet. Imagine that.
I mean, I can speak personally. I've had several new hires who I'm like, oh, this person's not getting it. And I was super excited about them when I hired them.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you're busy and you don't have a chance to dig in and go, why? Sometimes you just really need them to be able to do the job that you hired them for, because you were overworked in the first place, right? So that's a challenge. 15 people so far. Let's see if we can get a full 17 who all have had a new hire who wasn't getting it. Dun, dun, dun.
And I think everyone can agree, like, it's it's a little frustrating.
I think it is frustrating and because, when you hire somebody, unless it's a really true entry level position, you kind of expect them to hit the ground running. You forget, let's face it, within about 3 months' time, you forgot what it was like to be new when you started a new
Yep.
job, right? So you're not always thinking about how much that person really needs to hit the ground running in learning the company. And that's not part of doing their job, right? So you don't even think about that. So yeah, that's a hard one. You have to really, I think that if you have a plan in place, then you don't have to think about it. The think work is taken out of that whole thing. You're supposed to check in with them about such and such, and then it's easier to do.
Yeah. And sometimes you do have a plan in place and you do everything you can and it just doesn't work.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about that today as well. And we do encourage you, we'll have some more polls going on, but we also encourage you to use the chat as well if you have questions or comments that you want to share.
So 15 out of 15 people all chose that, yes, they had a new hire who wasn't getting it. Your other two, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping you're on the yes side because this is going to make this a lot more valuable for you than himself.
All right. So we're going to go through a little case study of a situation where we had a new hire who wasn't getting it. So a little background, a medium-sized tech company recently expanded its development team. The HR department conducted a thorough recruitment process, resulting in the hiring of John, a software developer with seemingly impressive qualifications and experience. All right, great, awesome. So we're super excited at this point. We feel like we got the best candidate, and we're looking for John to hit the ground running. So then our initial observations. John's onboarding process appeared to go smoothly. He was introduced to his team and provided with all necessary resources to begin work. However, within the first week, several team members reported that John seemed disengaged during team meetings and reluctant to participate in collaborative projects. So let's think about that a little bit more. What does disengagement during team meetings look like? So now you have a new hire who's possibly maybe on their cell phone, not participating, maybe not asking questions. And you're already seeing that it's affecting your other team members because they're coming to you with it.
I mean, reluctance to participate could be that they don't feel confident, right? And that's pretty normal. So I think that's worth investigating and looking into to find out exactly what that part means. But the disengaged part is pretty clear. You can tell when somebody's actively engaged in what's going on. So at this point now, issues are beginning to arise. By the second week, it's become evident that John's technical skills weren't as proficient as his resume has suggested. So he's struggling with basic coding tasks. He can't keep up with the pace of the team. Additionally, he's also displaying poor communication skills, misinterpreting project guidelines, and missing deadlines. Oof. Yeah, I think that's a pretty obvious one, right? If you're not paying attention, I think you could still catch that, right? Deadlines are definitely going to reflect back on somebody who's going to notice. So talking about the impact on the team, John's performance and attitude really begin to affect the team negatively, as it should. Morale drops as the other team members have to pick up his slack, and the lead developer is reporting the issue to the HR department. He's concerned with the impact on the project deadlines and team dynamics, because prior to this, they probably had a pretty decent team going, and this is really slowing things down.
So at this point, HR and management are going to intervene. So HR and management conducted a formal review involving feedback from John's colleagues and a reassessment of his work. So again, just keep in mind, because things are being reported by other employees, you do want to make sure that as a manager, you look at it to determine that it's accurate and that you're assessing the work properly. In this case, it became clear that John had exaggerated his qualifications and experience during the interview process.
That happens. You give a good interview.
Yeah.
And if you're not looking for the right thing.
Exactly. HR and management decided to implement a performance improvement plan as a final attempt to salvage the situation. We'll talk a little bit more about what improvement plans look like. So the outcome. So despite that PIP, John's performance did not improve significantly. After several discussions about fit and expectations, it was mutually agreed that John would leave the company. The company then reviewed its hiring processes to tighten verification checks and avoid similar situations in the future.
I feel like that should have added better interviewing, because I think
Mhm.
that's a big deal. When you make a big mistake, sometimes it happens, but a lot of it lies in the interviewer and the interview process.
Yeah, and also determining like what needs to be included in that process. People can say that they're great at coding or they're great at XYZ, but can you incorporate a skill assessment to determine are they actually great at that?
Yeah, sometimes I would tell my managers to, if there's one of those little problems that you have that keeps coming up, throw it at the applicant. See what their feedback is. They don't have to solve it, but you can see their process, and you can tell if that's somebody that actually gets what they're can walk the walk and talk the talk.
Exactly, exactly.
So lessons learned here, we just kind of talked about that. This case underscores the importance of a thorough background check and reference check during the hiring process. I think more reference checks than the background check, because he
Yeah.
didn't come in as a mass murderer or anything.
But sometimes that background check will include employment verification,
That's
where
true.
you want to ensure that what positions they held, they actually held. So that's one of the most common things that people lie about on resumes, is their actual title.
Yeah, I guess that's true, right? They were an administrative assistant, and they say they were a project manager or
Yeah,
something. So,
exactly.
okay.
And they know just enough about
yeah.
that role because they were close to it
Yeah.
for them to get by.
I think we should definitely underscore the importance of a thorough interview process as well, though. It also highlights the need for a structured onboarding program that includes performance assessments early in the employment period to quickly identify any discrepancies between the new hire's demonstrated abilities and the job requirements. I can't stress that one enough. Additionally, it reinforces the value of a responsive HR department that can swiftly address issues before they escalate. Little pat on the back for that one, on the HR team.
Yep.
So Marie, I'm trying to think of kind of like a horror story, because this one was very, very bland,
Yeah, it was a little
but
clean cut.
let's face it, we've all had an employee that,
Yeah.
What have you got?
It's never this clean cut. Yes, it affects employee morale, but you think about what is it? What does that look like? And how does it affect the business? So there was I would say about a little over a year ago, we had a client who wanted to hire a head of sales position. It
Okay,
was a
pretty
new,
clear.
yeah, new role to the company. This person would be overseeing the sales team. They'd be working on their training and development because they really didn't have a strong training and development process in place. And then they'd also be looking at their current customers, how to better engage them, and then how to bring in new customers.
Now, head of anything should have a whole breadth of experience in that resume and in their head.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a good job description, fairly good interviewing plan for it. However, one of the things that we did want to include, which was not included, was the predictive index. And if anyone's familiar with the predictive index or you're a PI customer with us, it's a behavioral based assessment. So you can tell what someone's driving behaviors are, what type of work they'll enjoy, how they'll communicate, and then you can line them up to that role and determine, is this person going to be successful in this type of work? We didn't do that, but this person did go through, I would say, about 4 different interviews with various levels of people.
Okay.
And everyone was on board. They loved her, thought she'd be great, did the reference checks, did the employment verification, background checks, everything came back great. So they hired her. She comes into the job, and now right off the bat, she is not getting along with the other team members.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we probably couldn't have judged that in the interview process. What
no
else have you
difficult.
got to make this a horror story? What else?
Yeah, so the team, obviously, they did not want to work with her. They were complaining to HR, they were complaining to management. She also would not take the time to sit down and learn the processes of the company. She was so focused on making changes and trying to pretty much throw things upside down instead of really learning how to do things, follow direction, be a little bit more calm, patient, and get a good understanding of the layout before making changes. So at this point, management was definitely frustrated. So we did use the predictive index.
Oh, what did you find out?
So we found out that her behaviors were very far off from what this role needed. She had a very low attention to detail. She was very fast-paced, very high sense of urgency, which is great, but it showed that she didn't have the behaviors to slow it down, be more team-oriented, and follow a process.
So her urgency was towards something else, and not towards what they needed.
Exactly.
Okay.
And she was also extremely independent. So her urgency is going to be towards whatever she wanted it to be,
Yeah.
which could be great in some roles, but not in this one. And when the manager saw the behavioral report, his exact words were, "I was horrified." Yeah.
I can see that. I think because I'm new to Compass, me about 6 months now, and I'm new to the predictive index. And listen, no test it tells you everything, but I have learned that it really does really give you a general idea of a personality and how that fits. So I can say how important that would be. I think we have a comment here.
We have an employee hired about 60 days ago who exaggerated skills on their resume and is not able to meet minimum job expectations. Since she was within the 90-day intro period, well, can we terminate without a PIP? So I think we're going to hang on to that question.
Yeah, let's hold on. We're gonna have a few minutes at the end, so please remind us if we don't hit it, but I think it'll be important for us to hold on, and you might actually be able to get that answer as we go along.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Yes. All right, so we discussed some of the things, the reasons why new hires might not be performing well, but let's kind of dig into those common reasons a little bit more. So one of them, could be unclear expectations, lack of proper onboarding, maybe culturally they're a misfit or their skills don't line up. But it's really important to kind of look below what you see on the surface. So when we have someone who's not performing, we really need to understand the root cause to determine how we should approach the situation, and then what can we do differently, either in the moment or the next time that we hire someone. Some of the more common root causes that we see is, sometimes we provide the new employee with an outdated job description, or we've seen some companies not provide a job description at all.
Most often.
Yeah, more often than not. Or they fail to accurately communicate what the current performance requirements are and the expectations.
Again, very, very frequent.
And then Carrie mentioned this as well. Sometimes we think that we provided that new hire with a really great onboarding experience and we gave them the required training. But in actuality, the person was kind of thrown into the fire. That happens a lot as well. The other thing to understand is that everyone learns differently. So some people, it might take them a little bit longer to get up to speed.
Yeah, I'm pretty visual, and the older that I get, yes, age is getting older. I become more and more visual. Like my husband always wants to read me something, and I'm like, just stop. I'm not getting anything you're saying. So that is pretty important to think about.
And that's something I like to ask people too when I'm onboarding them, like, how do you learn best? And this way I can tailor that approach to them. And then sometimes we just miss the mark in recruiting and selection. So we thought maybe we were assessing and evaluating the right skills, while we miss some key competencies that are associated with performance in that specific role. Think about that case study we just looked at. It didn't include any skill-based assessments. And the new hire story that I just shared didn't include any behavioral assessments. So we need to make sure that we have a very well-rounded interviewing and selection
Take the time, because the time that you take to interview an applicant will be well paid back in tenure, right? You will not be looking for another employee in 6 months.
Yeah, it's an investment. And then maybe we did hit the mark and we assessed for all the right knowledge, skills, behaviors, and competencies, but we didn't look at how that person's values would align with the company culture and the team dynamics.
Or maybe their evil twin was actually the one that did the interview, and the other one showed up and has no idea how to do the job, which, as much as it sounds funny, we did have somebody that we kind of thought that happened with.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that was actually pretty recent. And then occasionally you get the right person on board, but there are external factors that contribute. So maybe the person's going through some personal issues, some health issues, but they have things going on outside of work that are really getting in the way of them delivering good performance. And there are plenty of resources out there to help you check in on your new hire success. So such as TaskQ, SHRM, or you can even use simple 30, 60, 90. We did recently a two-part onboarding series. So we would definitely suggest going back and watching that if you haven't looked that over.
Right. And SHRM is an excellent resource, and they do have the 30, 60, 90 document, like a template for you to use. Okay. So we're going to evaluate the situation because we've just told you that you need to. I mean, a simple check-in as HR, I've always done that. So within about a week or a week and a half, I will reach out to that new hire and I'll say to them, have you gotten all the training that you needed? Do you have all the accesses you needed? Sometimes I discovered before the manager did that they didn't get access to Hub Pro or something that they needed to do their job. Or their laptop is still not functioning the way they should. And again, it's gotten overlooked because the manager is overworked in their own thing. So sometimes it can start with HR, that course correcting and that check-in. So before we take any action, as soon as we notice signs of trouble, we're going to need to evaluate the situation objectively, not how we think it should be, but really let's look at the facts and then answer some key questions. And this sometimes allows us to dig a little deeper. So we're going to consider planning an agenda. I think that that's key. Sometimes when you have a conversation, especially one of lack of performance, that conversation goes off the rails. And if you have an agenda, you are allowing yourself to come back if you need to, and you don't get lost and realize that you never discussed the point of the meeting. Especially if there's a personal issue,
Yeah.
then it's all lost. Okay, so this will maximize your success and ensure that you can course correct, as I said, if things go off to one side or the other. So common items on that agenda might be, how does the new employee's performance compare to the job description and performance goals? Again, if you haven't provided a job description, this may be the time. But you definitely will know about what the performance goals are, and it's important to share those. What's the experience of other team members and colleagues? Have you had complaints? What is the assessment of the new hire in terms of how things are going? How do they think things are going? I think that's one of those questions that we rarely ask, right?
Yeah.
Especially when a leader is uncomfortable with perhaps interpersonal relationships, right? They're not all leaders are people who love to talk to other people, right?
That's very true.
And so they may not actually even think about evaluating how that employee thinks things are going. You might learn a lot if you ask. Is there something they feel is getting in the way of doing their best work? Did they get the right training? If they're saying they're not getting training, do a little digging, find out what the training program looks like. You may need to rebuild it, or you may find out that the training didn't happen like it was supposed to. Did they have the right support and resources they needed to perform their job effectively? I just mentioned items like that. So think about all of those pieces of that puzzle. And then once we know what's getting in the way of the new hire's effective performance, we can identify and implement the right strategies to help them succeed. It's pretty simple. We just have to actually pay attention. If we are seeing a problem, it may require us to update the job description, offer targeted training or a mentorship. Mentorships are good. We don't think about those often enough. And or hold regular one-on-one meetings with the new hire to align on expectations. Also, set SMART goals and provide regular feedback to the employee.
So now that we've answered some of those critical questions involved in evaluating, let's look a little bit deeper and look at how we can further assess the new hire's performance and then how to communicate with your new hire. Carrie mentioned SMART goals. So this involves setting clear, measurable goals and benchmarks. So you want to think about, one, do you have goals for the new hire? That's the first question. And then if you don't, now is a good time to do so. And then are those goals clear and actionable? So are there specific steps for the person to take to achieve that goal? Are they results oriented and measurable? So how will you and the new hire know once that goal is achieved? And then is everyone on the same page? Do you and the new hire have the same vision of what that goal looks like and what exactly they're going to be doing and when they're going to be doing it?
Being explicit is important here.
Yes, you cannot over communicate. What I like to do a lot is when I explain something to someone, I ask them to repeat it back to me. This way I can ensure that they understood it the way I meant it and address any miscommunication.
I usually go the other way. I'll usually follow up with an email or provide a sheet, when we're talking, this is what I want you to do, this is how I want you to do it. Or like I said, I'll send an email that follows up so that they can refer back to it after. But both ways are very good ways to make sure that you're explicit enough that the employee knows what they need to do.
Yeah. And then some best practices for starting that conversation about someone's performance. This can be an uncomfortable situation, especially if the manager is not someone who's comfortable having a direct conversation with someone.
And if they're not, you might want to consider management training. That's never
Yes.
hurt anything.
No. So you want to start off by setting a positive tone. You want the new hire to feel comfortable. You don't want them to feel on the defense because you want to be able to have a productive conversation and ultimately support them. You know, again, like we said, you spent a lot of time hiring this person, getting them onboarded. So you want to see that investment pay off and have this person do well. And then when you're speaking with them, focus on specific issues, not the person.
Yeah, what do they say? If you start out, think with you. That's often a way that people just shut down. They
Yes.
stop listening because,
Yep.
oh, great, it's all about me now. And as much as you think you is a good place and you're not doing your work, try to think of another way to say it.
Focus on the work itself. Start out with that, the work or this task, instead of you. And be open to feedback. So we mentioned this too, like you might need to change some of the things that you're doing. You might need to incorporate more training. You might need to give this person additional support or redo their job description, but be open to hearing that feedback. And then be sure to mention what's going right as well. A lot of times people do not communicate what's going well. And for the new hire, knowing that something is going right could really open them up a bit more, and then they'll be more susceptible to taking that critical feedback. And then if you are a PI client with us or use the predictive index, really consider that new hire's behavioral profile. It'll tell you how this person responds to pressure and critique. Are they going to shut down? Are they someone who prefers to talk things through? Or are they someone who prefers to analyze things? And in that case, you might want to give them a little heads up, like, hey, I'd like to have a check-in with you about your performance, about how things are going, and give them a little time before you actually have that conversation. If you use the PI, there are plenty of tools in there that can help you communicate with that person in a way that's really going to motivate them. All right, so we're going to jump to another quick poll. So what resources and support do you offer to new hires, or what would you like to offer?
So pie in the sky, people. If you don't offer something right now, anything is a good suggestion.
Yep.
Remember, there are how many people on here now?
Oh, 20.
20 people listening. So make some suggestions. If you can take away something from this besides what we've given you, it makes it even more valuable.
I personally like to do weekly check-ins.
Yes, I agree. I've also used formal trainings. There's plenty out there, like Fred Pryor, you can get, if you buy one of their trainings, you can usually get the yearly membership.
Yep.
And there are so many in their catalog that it hits almost every circumstance, including teaching people how to better their interpersonal skills.
Mhm.
Also job specific, and platform training, right? If you have an HRIS system that has a platform, utilize those trainings. That's what you're paying for anyway, right?
Definitely.
Job specific trainings like the project manager training, any of those things, they don't have them yet. It doesn't hurt anything.
No.
It helps.
Something else that's helpful that we already mentioned is the mentor program, assigning them a mentor, especially if their manager has a very heavy workload.
Yes. Also, one of the things that I think is often overlooked is a set of SOPs, right? Where I worked early on in my career, we used to write out our job tasks and we'd ask someone who wasn't doing the job to actually do it based on what we've written out. And that way we could work out the kinks, because sometimes what's natural to you is not natural to the person doing it. And it was so valuable because even sometimes for yourself, you were able to go back and go, wait a second, how do I do this?
Yeah.
A new hire would
Yep.
be gold.
Yeah, because there are some things that you don't do regularly.
Yeah, and you don't think about it because it's muscle memory. How many
Right.
times have you been going someplace and all of a sudden you actually kind of woke up just at your exit, right? Because it's muscle memory, right? I mean, occasionally I
get a
woken up
little
after.
scared. 'Cause I'm like, how did I get to this light?
Yeah, kind of. But the truth is we do that. We operate on muscle memory and we do that at work too.
Yeah.
So it's important to consider that and give that kind of resource.
So
So
let's see what we got so far.
9 of you, that's very helpful. I love it. Okay, what have we got?
I would like to send the links to the SOPs, weekly check-ins, weekly Zoom calls. I like to provide a laptop, team meetings, and one-on-one talks.
I think team meetings are one of those often overlooked as well. Because if you have a team that's sort of far flung, you don't actually get them together. A manager that I knew did that so well. He had all virtual employees. And they were the most cohesive team. He would meet with them once a week, and I think once a month he would do a lunch. He'd say to them, buy yourself lunch, send me the receipt, I'll, reimburse. And then everybody would eat lunch together and they would talk about things. And he would actually come up with little things like, okay, now everybody has to stand up and explain their meal like they were on one of those chef shows. But they really were a cohesive team. So just because somebody's far away doesn't mean you can't do it either.
Yeah, no, those are great.
Okay, so talking about development and support plans. Many times a conversation, as well-meaning as it is not enough to turn the tide. You may need to develop a more personalized support plan like that first question that came into the comments for the new hire. Development and support plans consist of multiple components here, and they need to be structured thoughtfully to be successful. So a good plan is going to include additional training and should be customized for the employee and their role, as well as the areas that they might require the most help in. So there might be aspects that are more geared towards the role and learning that, but also spot check the items that you think that they're particularly having a challenge with. And it might not be as simple as it might not be as related to the job as you think. Sometimes, again, it might be interpersonal, so that those trainings don't necessarily have to have a label of a job on them. You might consider assigning them a mentor. I've had really good experience with that. However, it should be someone who's well versed in the role and also enjoys training others. Just because this person knows their job doesn't mean they would be a good mentor. I've actually had the reverse happen many times, right? In algebra class, this teacher had no idea how to explain if you had a question, right? So keep that in mind. Just because someone does the job well, it doesn't mean they're prepared to teach the others how to do it, and also doesn't mean they want to. Also, ensure that the mentor has clarity of what is to be accomplished. They can't go in there dry. If you don't tell them what you want, they're not going to be able to provide it. Also check in on the mentoring arrangement in order to make sure that you provide support or catch if it's not working well. Make sure you check in with the mentor as well as the employee. What support is available to the new hire that might help them improve with regards to additional resources? Do you have a training program? What about online resources? Regular check-ins, super important. We've talked about that a few times. Setting up a reoccurring meeting or a bi-weekly to sit down with the new hire and discuss how they're doing is great. I am not somebody who likes to be micromanaged, and my manager knows that. So we check in bi-weekly. I feel better because I'm able to share what I'm doing, and also I know that I can hold questions that are not urgent for that meeting. So it's always helpful to have a space on the calendar there for you to check in. Use this time to provide constructive feedback. And again, as I mentioned, check in with the mentor. This will provide an additional feedback opportunity. Practically speaking, assign the new hire specific tasks or projects to work on that will help develop their skills if that's an issue. These can become increasingly more complex as the new hire progresses because you'll want to see progress, so that's a good thing. Use these tasks or projects as milestones in assessing their development, and also morale-wise, if an employee sees that they're making progress, that's actually really good.
Yeah, that feels good.
Use the SMART principle. Again, we talked about that. It's really means specific, accurate, relevant, and time-bound goals. That's the way to go. Make sure these goals are discussed and agreed to collaboratively. And then, of course, writing the performance improvement plan. So betterup.com has an article called Write a Performance Improvement Plan, PIP, that really works. If you'd like more help with that, you can also send a note in the comment, and we'll see if we can help you with that as well. But that's something that really is a very important support document, and make sure that you give time and resources. It's not just about the employee. And we have another poll. Maybe we should have a chime.
Yeah. All right, so we have a little situation here. You're receiving mixed feedback from the team about your new hire. They're 6 months in and they recently completed their development plan. So you did a development plan and they completed it. You thought things were going well. Team members are reporting that the new hire is not pulling their weight on certain projects and they're missing some key details in their work. They no longer want to work with the new hire. What would be your next course of action? What do you think you'd do next?
So I think this directly relates to the question that we had in the very beginning here. So if anyone has any suggestions to put in there, please do, thinking about that question. And again, that question really was, since that person is within their 90-day mark. So in this case, it's not 6 months, but it's 90 days,
Right.
which we do consider probation, but bear in mind, there is no such thing, right? An employee is an employee from day one. But what can we do? Do we need to do a PIP? Are we obligated? Can we let them go? 6 months or 90 days, either one. What have you got?
And even if you're not sure, you just want to give a guess out there of what you think you might do. I know we don't have all the information here.
No wrong answers.
No.
No question is foolish. We have one person who's participated, and we have 21 people now.
Woohoo.
Out of 21, I want to see some others people. Jump in and ask. All right, jump in and make a comment. One of the things that I love about the HR community is that we're all always so willing to help everyone.
Yeah.
That's something that struck me when I first got into HR. And whether you're HR or a management or an owner of a company, anything that you have to share with us, you probably have experiences here. We would love to have it. So we have 6 people who've participated so far.
7.
Amazing. 7. We'll give it a couple more seconds. All right, let's take a look at what we've got.
A look.
And don't think you can't add anything into chat after. You're welcome to. If you didn't finish by hitting enter, you're good. Okay, let's see.
Retrain them, have a conversation.
Okay, somebody learned our
Yep.
lessons that we were saying. So we like that. Investigate what's the failure. Maybe there's
Yeah.
a need for more specific training. Great. Clear expectation and job description. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. Check in with the team for specifics that the
Right.
person isn't achieving. Yeah, let's get exactly what it is that's happening.
Something that popped up in the chat. Looks like somebody has something to add.
Yeah, have separate conversations and assess, someone said. Definitely. You want to hear from the new hire themselves, and you want to hear from the employees, and you want to be able to make an objective evaluation about what's happening. You don't want to just assume. So I think those are some great steps to try. Unfortunately, sometimes we try everything we can, and we got to determine we need to make a tough decision here.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So when is it time to consider reassignment, extending an introductory period, or letting an employee go? Sometimes we need to make these decisions because it's really necessary for the overall health of the team and the organization, your business, your customers, the services that you're offering. So one well-known quote that really resonates with the theme of moving on, especially in a professional context,
I like this quote.
yeah, is by Steve Jobs. So if you want to make everyone happy, don't be a leader, sell ice cream. This quote really underscores the idea that leadership and difficult decisions often involve making choices that are not going to please everyone. It's really difficult to please everyone when you're in a leadership position. And this includes the tough decision of moving on from an employee. And it reflects the understanding that leadership is about making the decisions that best serve the goals and the future of the organization, even when those decisions are hard to make.
And they are hard and they should be. You're a human being. It's not something you're gonna like.
No. And we saw that just even in that last poll, nobody said they were going to move to terminating the person.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, because I've many times had a leader go straight to that. Like,
Yep.
okay, we're done.
Yep. I've had people call me, this new hire is not working out.
Yeah.
How do I get rid of them?
And there's no backing up from that. That's
Yeah.
really hard. So we appreciate that you've all thought that way.
Yeah. So we have some options here. So first, you might consider reassigning the employee to either another department or position for which they could be better suited. Just a little word of advice here. We've seen this done poorly many times. We've seen employers match the employee to a new job where they'll keep the same salary. So for example, they'll take someone who's a buyer level 4, they're struggling, and they'll move them to an accountant level 4 position because it matches their salary.
And maybe they had some experience on their resume as a accounts payable.
Yeah.
For example, you have an accountant level 4 doing accounts payable. Somehow that's not working. So
No.
really think about that.
Yeah. You want to really consider that placement. If this could be the case, you're setting them up to fail. Think about their skills, their experience, their abilities, and where they might be a better fit based on those factors.
Fill out the resume.
Yep. Look at that resume again. Look at the job description for the other position. Does it line up? And then is this person even interested in that? You hired them for one job. Even though they're not doing well, they might not be interested in making that move.
Yeah.
If you use introductory periods, you could extend the introductory period to allow the employee, say, another 90 days to show improvement. That said, if you do that, just make sure that there's a plan in place to regularly check in on their progress. So maybe you're going to have weekly check-ins, bi-weekly check-ins. You want to set them up with a check-in process and then some support during those additional 90 days.
So I think, should we tackle that question here? Essentially, just let them know. I mean, I think that, do we have enough time?
I think
Should we take a minute or?
I think we might get to these.
You think?
Yeah,
All right, so
we'll
then
be
let's
all
go down.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes you might have tried these strategies and it's time to move on. This person isn't going to work out. And a lot of times when a new hire is struggling, they know it, they feel it. They're not happy in the job.
They could be oblivious because I have
Yeah.
too, but we'll go the other route. So, okay, we're gonna talk about terminations. So legal and ethical considerations in the termination process include New York State employment at will, as you said so aptly. An employee can be let go for any reason at all or no reason as long as it's lawful. However, I've always said a good HR department will never ever do that. There's always going to be something that proves the reason why the employee was let go. So, but we also need to consider that the employee may be in a protected class. So have processes been objectively and clearly communicated with them is another thing to think about. And then our go-to is to consult with HR or a labor attorney if you find that any of these things are not that clearly set up in your notes, okay? We always say this, but documentation is key. Be sure to document the performance issues. Have your managers, train your managers to do that. Make sure that you list conversations, development plans, corrective action. I mentioned earlier summarizing conversations in an email. That's one of the tools that I use all the time with my leaders because it's a lot easier to do that than write up a document. Managers don't have time for that. So I say send an email to that employee, CC HR or blind CC HR, depending on how you think it's going to go. Summarize the conversation, what you will provide, what the employee is expected to provide, and then I can put it right in the electronic file and we're good to go. Okay. Consider the impact of these decisions on team morale and how to manage it. It's another aspect that's often overlooked. If this decision is consistent with your practices and previous actions, that's fine, but is this the first time for you? Again, be sure that it's a lawful decision that you come to. Determine how to communicate the news to the rest of the team, knowing that it's important to communicate in a compassionate way, and you don't always have to give all of the information.
No.
So don't talk too much. If the message isn't communicated from leadership, employees will talk. So keep that in mind. Prepare clear communication to share with the team. and what next steps look like. There are going to be projects that have to be handed off, for example. So cover that. Don't leave everyone wondering what's going to happen.
All right, so we are coming to the end, so we're going to go over some of our key takeaways. We talked about this quite a bit, but early identification and really understanding the reasons behind a new hire's underperformance are crucial. If you see something, say something. So if you see an early red flag or an early indicator that things are not going well, you want to have a conversation and address it as soon as possible. If you don't address it, the likelihood of it changing is very low.
Bad actions become habits. And then you know how hard it is to change a habit.
Yes.
All of us do that. Know that.
And you don't want to be coming to someone a year later and saying, I know you've been doing this for the past 12 months, but this isn't right.
And also bear in mind, if you have a training program and you discover this not working, evaluate the training program. We talked about the way people learn.
Yeah.
It may not be hitting home for them. So maybe you need a different trainer, a different approach, or some one-on-one time.
Yeah. Effective communication and those tailored development plans can really improve a new hire's performance. Again, communication is key. And structuring a development plan to focus on the specific employee's gaps is more likely to lead to success versus a one-size-fits-all approach. So you need to really understand exactly where that employee is struggling and coming up with a plan for that specific employee to improve. And lastly, sometimes making those tough decisions, it's necessary for the health of the team and the organization. It's unfortunate, it doesn't feel good, nobody's usually happy, but you do need to do what's right for your organization and your business. Doesn't mean that you should just go wild and start firing people as soon as they show a little sign. But sometimes that does happen. You do everything you can and you have to make that decision. And ultimately, if the new hire isn't in the role that's right for them, unless they're oblivious, they're not happy either. So a lot of times it's in everyone's best interest to move on.
I would say almost 90% of the times that I've had to let someone go, it turned out better for that employee because it wasn't the right fit, either with skills or the organization. And that's kind of how I rationalize it, because it is a hard thing to do, right? And everybody says, how do you fire people for a living? You know, I do other things, not just firing people. But the truth is, thinking about it that way and realizing that you may be freeing them up to either get out of a rut that they've been in for a long, long time, or find something that really speaks to them and that they do well is actually a good thing. So, not always bad things come out of this kind of action.
Yeah. So before we get into some questions and answers and some other things, we do just want to thank you all for joining us today. And we know we've had quite a few of you that have joined multiple sessions that we've held, and we really appreciate that.
Keep coming back.
Yes. If you enjoyed our session, we would love for you to share a review. We do love having that feedback. So you can use that QR code right there. And then we will be having our next session on Wednesday, May 15th at noon.
So I'll just say that after our webinars are done, both of us go over and look for comments. So if you have any, feel free to send them. Please do. It makes our day because we spend a lot of time creating these programs and we really like doing what we do, but we love it when we hear what you all have to say. And if you have a suggestion for another one, something that you really want to know, let us know. We're thinking of doing a question and answer session. So talk to us.
Yeah.
We're listening.
And then we do have some other things coming up that we're super excited about. So just be on the lookout.
Marie is teaching this one.
We are launching a Mastering HR Essentials course that's focused on understanding the basic elements of HR. It's a 4-part workshop. It's really intended for people who are in maybe like an admin position, an office manager position, who do HR for their companies, but HR is not their main focus. It's also great for people who are just entering the HR field. So if you or someone else on your team, you think this would be a great course for them, we will be sending out some more information on that over the next couple of weeks. And then since you did all make it to the end, We are offering a free consultation. So we're very much dedicated to supporting your success, which is why we do these sessions. You were on this webinar today and you're really one step closer to the goals that you and your team want to achieve. So we're offering a 20-minute consultation. You'll get the opportunity to see what it's like to work with us. You can schedule it using that QR code. And during this 20-minute consultation, it's really up to you what you want to talk about. We know we had some questions in the chat. Maybe those are some of the things you want to bring. We can also look at a current job description, or if you don't have a job description, we can help you with creating one. We can look at reviewing your onboarding process, or maybe you have a new hire and you want to talk about the pain points that are happening.
Misery loves company. We're happy to listen.
Yeah.
And give you some advice.
Or if there's another area you'd like to discuss, we're more than happy to review that with you as well and provide some advice and whatever support that we can.
So this is what we do. This is what we like to do every single day. So we would love to interact with you and help make your life a little bit easier.
All right, so let's go to
Go
our
back to
chat.
the slide with the QR code for the comments, just so that if anybody hasn't had a chance to scan that with their camera, with their phone, please feel free. Okay, so what do we have here?
All right, Eileen, we have an employee hired about 60 days ago who exaggerated skills on their resume and is not able to meet minimum job expectations. Since they're within the 90-day intro period and at will, can we terminate without a PIP?
What kind of anecdotal evidence do you have, right? Have you got notes in the file about interventions? Has the manager or the leader met with this person? Have you tried anything within the 60 days? Because think about it, if it's a probationary period, that's the time when you really should be amping up all of the support. So if you do have information that shows that you did make a good effort, there's nothing wrong with terminating the employee without the PIP. It's recommended that you do the PIP, however, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just an extra added layer of really putting something together. Because again, that investment in your employee oftentimes was money, right, to a recruiter or an online service that sends you applicants. So you really don't want to waste it. We would definitely recommend a PIP.
Yeah.
But you can go forward as long as you do have evidence to show that you've tried and done everything you can with the termination.
And then if you do the PIP, it doesn't have to be something that goes on for 6 months.
No, it could be 30 days. I mean, you know,
you want to put a
belabor the
timeline
point.
on it.
Right. Let's see. Takes copious notes. What do we got?
Yeah, our organization has many trainings in place. The team that is supervised do not engage in the trainings and do not take full advantage. Once we have a conversation, they say they lack the training.
Make it fun. That's all I always say. If everybody always, what's that? WIFM. What's in it for me? If there isn't anything in it for them that's obvious, that may be your key. Make it fun. Do a lunch and learn. Make it pizza. Someplace I know gives things. They give like a backpack or a t-shirt or whatever. Even pens. I like office supplies. I do, you know, try that first before you give up, because you just may need to incentivize people to actually get in there and do the training.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people just forget the resources that are available to them.
Yep.
Even though we give it to them, we tell them about it, like they still forget. So when you have that conversation and they say, well, I don't have the proper training, this would be the time to remind them of that training. And then depending on the level they're at, I would put it back on the employee and say to them, hey, when are you going to complete this training?
Here's the calendar. I happen to have a handy dandy calendar.
Yeah. And then put it back on them to schedule some time with you to touch base on if they have questions after.
What was the one that was up there? Can we use a summary emails as documentation that projects are not getting done? Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Elizabeth.
Definitely. Those summary emails are super easy for managers to do, and they work. As long as you make sure that the employee got it, right? Because when you say it, if you make notes and memos, it actually doesn't mean anything at all.
Yeah.
The employee, somebody else has to know about it.
How do you motivate employees to help themselves when they're given all the tools and different types of training and reference points? Sometimes I would just point blank ask them, like, this is what you've been allowed. Like, what else do you need to help motivate you?
Yeah, how are we doing? You
Yeah,
know, let's
ask for
sit
feedback.
down a second and talk about it. Because I'm thinking that things aren't going well for you. How do you feel they're going? Because remember we talked about asking the employee how they feel?
Yeah.
Let's find out. Why aren't they motivated?
And then be open to hearing that feedback.
Yeah.
How long does an introductory period last?
There's no any real thing called introductory period. I feel like, there is definitely, there are probationary periods in a union environment,
Mhm.
right? And those are necessary and real. But in a working environment, a regular working environment, you're an employee from day one. Introductory wise, if you're talking about not a probationary period, but introductory, I feel like it's about 90 days before an employee actually starts to feel like they're making a contribution. Would you agree?
Sometimes it depends on the level of employee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done this a few times, and usually that's my level, right? I get to 3 months and I kind of feel like I'm making a contribution. I'm starting to understand the culture of where I'm working and what is needed of me. And then about 6 months before I really start to feel like I can take the training wheels off and I'm riding by myself. By a year, I forget being new.
Yeah.
But it is different for everyone. So understandable.
And then Gary shared a great point. He said, I would suggest that before taking the next step, you should ask the following question. Was the lack of performance a failure to execute or a lack of knowledge? For lack of knowledge, we educate. For failure to execute, we take corrective action.
Nicely said, Gary. You should be in HR, Gary.
And then Elizabeth asked, I am in California. What do I need to terminate a poorly performing employee? Anything special? So California has their whole different set of laws, and it also depends where you are in California, Elizabeth. I would definitely suggest taking us up on that one-on-one consultation, and we can definitely go over that a little bit more.
Right, we have investigated that a number of times and can provide that specific information to you.
And then same thing if someone has employees in another state and you'd like to chat with us, again, use that consultation.
What is the website for performance reviews? It was betterup.com, I think it was. I believe it was betterup.com. Oh, somebody who uses PI. Nice job, Rochelle.
All right, perfect. So I think
if anybody's been to our webinars as of late, you'll realize that we organized this one a whole lot better. High five, Marie. Nice job.
Yep.
She's the one who put the little notes in there at the times. We have a lot of information to share and not too much time to do it. So we've done a good job this time of getting everything out. So well done.
We're just going to go back to the slide in case anyone does want to schedule that time with us.
And hopefully you've used the other QR code to pass on some comments or feedback. And now please feel free to schedule, because again, we really would like to work with you and help you with anything that you have that we can dig into.
Yeah, we know everything that we cover isn't a one size fits all. So this is a great opportunity to share some of like your specific challenges and pain points. But thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Good luck to all your new hires.
We'll leave the screen open for.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A voice came through.
Yeah, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. We're going to leave the screen open for a couple of seconds just in case you haven't gotten the QR code.